Sunday night at the Bee Ocean Resort in Fort Lauderdale, the LGBT community and its supporters came together in a celebration and remembrance, continuing the struggle to retain the gains already achieved while never letting up on the mission to achieve equal rights for all. A multitude of leaders from government and business joined in welcoming the guest of honor, tennis superstar and equal rights advocate Martina Navratilova.
I'm very humbled by the award, but our work is not done. We're just really getting started right now.
Close to 500 attendees packed the main ballroom to hear Martina and many other dignitaries address the concerns and goals of equality.
I think now it's more important than ever that we send a message that Florida is a place that doesn't tolerate discrimination against anybody, including gay and transgender Floridians.
Reporter Jamie Guerrero of NBC6 was the host for the evening.
Welcome to the 14th Annual Equality Florida Broward Gala presented by PNC Bank. I'm NBC6 reporter Jamie Guerrero, thrilled to be your MC again this year for the second year in a row. We have a great night in store celebrating progress toward LGBT equality and the people who make it possible. And now, here is property appraiser-elect, I'm going to get it right this time, Broward County Mayor Marty Kerr.
Hello, everybody. How are you? And I actually have a proclamation here that I'm going to read, but before that, I will give anybody here $10 if you can return Martina's serve. Anybody? Anybody. It's a bet I'm willing to take. But with that said, I just want to thank Equality Florida for the great work that it does. You know, I had the privilege of serving in the Florida legislature and also on the county commission. And there are a lot of groups that do a lot of good, but there are no groups that get as many results for the people of our community and our county than Equality Florida. So please give them a big round of applause because they've made a big difference for a lot of people. Now with that said, I have a proclamation. Full equality in Florida will not simply come legislatively, but also through education and public opinion, and it's critical that this state has a robust LGBT advocacy organization that can always fight for this community. And whereas Equality Florida is celebrating the 2016 Equality Florida Broward County Gala on November 13, 2016 at the Bee Ocean Resort in Fort Lauderdale, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Broward County, Florida, that the board hereby designates Sunday, November 13, 2016 as Equality Florida Education Day in Broward County. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for what you do. You all are wonderful.
So I wish there was time, we just don't have it, to name all of the sponsors here tonight. But please check out the posters and look around you at people's name tags. And thank you again to all of our incredible sponsors. Now, this is the fourth year that PNC Bank is the statewide presenting sponsor of all of Equality Florida's galas. PNC has made so much possible, so far giving $200,000. Ladies and gentlemen, let's please welcome to the stage PNC Bank. Chad Brady.
Wow, I love the excitement in the room tonight. My name is Chad Brady, and today it's a pleasure to be here with my beautiful fiance, Ashley. Today, I'm going to be representing PNC Bank. Tonight's gala means so much to our LGBT community. I personally grew up in a same-sex household. I was raised by two moms. Thank you. I'm extremely proud to be here this evening representing such a dynamic team and great organization. My family, my parents, gave me all the love and support I needed growing up, but unfortunately, my community wasn't nearly as supportive. My family at times felt like we weren't even accepted within our own community. And it wasn't until my first day of undergrad until I truly felt like I was in an open-minded environment. That first day on campus, my family and I, we were introduced to PNC Bank University employees. That day, we opened our first PNC Bank accounts. 4 short years later, I started my career with PNC Bank. So today, I stand in front of you as the chair of our LGBT Employee Resource Group, and we're extremely proud to be here representing. Thankfully, over the last few years, PNC Bank has increased its focus not only on diversity and inclusion, but how it translates into business success. We understand we're not quite there yet, but it's a great journey. And thanks to organizations like Equality Florida, we're that much closer. I thank you all for being here tonight. Keep up the great work and keep fighting for equality for all. Thank you.
That was great, Chad. Thank you very much. What a great story. That actually gave me goosebumps. We need more straight allies like you in our community. Now I'd like to take a moment to introduce our co-founder and Deputy Director of Equality Florida, Stratton Pollitzer.
Good evening, everybody. Even though, of course, there was huge disappointment, there were some breakthroughs on Election Day that are worth celebrating. It is worth celebrating that the only incumbent statewide elected official in the South who got fired on Tuesday was Governor McCrory from North Carolina. Fired for his transphobia, fired for his homophobia. He is gone. That sends a message to anyone who wants to try to send us backwards. We're not going that way. And here in Florida, we hoped we were going to see huge strides with our state government. That didn't happen, but we did make progress. We did make things a little better in Tallahassee. In the Florida Senate, where we're aiming for greater parity between Democrats and Republicans, and we work with both parties, we picked up a Senate seat. There are now 15 Democrats, but there also are 4 Republicans, including the Senate Judiciary Chair, potentially, the Senate Appropriations Chair, the Senate President Pro Tem, and another senator who have pledged to be co-sponsors of our non-discrimination legislation and fight to pass it. You put those folks together with Democrats, we're just 2 votes shy of a majority in the Florida Senate, and that's before we even get to the voting part. In the Florida House, Democrats were facing a supermajority. They picked up 2 seats from 39 to 41 and broke that supermajority. That's a critical procedural breakthrough. And the most important victory we had on Election Day, because when we think about Tallahassee and we think about the need for a progressive, unyielding voice for our community fighting every day in Tallahassee, we are so lucky that our next speaker, who I'm going to bring up right now, is headed there, Equality Florida staff member, State Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith.
Thank you, Stratton, for that wonderful introduction. I was screaming yes, and then I realized the exact phrase I was looking for was, yes, Queen, yes! My name is Carlos Guillermo Smith, and I am a proud, progressive, liberal, feminist, gay, Latino Democrat, and I am so excited to be going to the Florida House of Representatives. I want to say thank you to all of you in this room for your love and for your support. There are many people who are here who invested deeply in our historic campaign, and I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart because you helped make this victory possible. It is more important now than ever before that we have unapologetic voices who are ready and willing to immediately call out bigotry, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, all of it. All of it. I promise to fight for you, to be your voice in Tallahassee, but I also promise that I am not leaving the Florida legislature until we pass the Florida Competitive Workforce Act. I'm not leaving. So thank you. We have a lot of work to do. Thank you, Broward County, and have a good night. Thank you for supporting our organization. Appreciate it.
All right, now I'd like to take some time to introduce someone new. Let's give a warm welcome to Nikki Roth, a tennis champion in her own right, and currently the director of tennis at the Tennis Center in Delray Beach.
Martina is my idol, on and off the court. Her courage to come out and propose to her girlfriend publicly changed my life by giving me the courage to be open about myself. I am so honored to be here tonight to present this award to my hero. But first, let's watch this video.
Martina. Like many superstars, you know her by one name. She's the all-time greatest tennis champion, top female athlete, and from the moment she became a U.S. citizen in 1981, she has been an out and proud lesbian. Martina was 18 when she defected in 1975. She became world #1 in tennis in 1978 when she defeated Chrissy Everett to win Wimbledon for the first of 9 times. Ultimately, Martina racked up more tournament wins than any other player, male or female, including 59 Grand Slam titles. Privately, Martina had been living as a lesbian for some time, but she would not come out publicly until she got her U.S. citizenship in 1981, because being a lesbian was a disqualifier for that. As an advocate for LGBT rights, Martina continues to pave the way for others to live their lives authentically.
You know, I look at her as one of my heroes. The dignity and the class that she's lived her life and all that she's achieved in her career. She is my role model. Hopefully, going forward, I can be someone else's role model.
Martina Navratilova is the only woman athlete of great consequence and stature who has stood up and said, "This is who I am."
Please welcome the legend, Martina Navratilova! Woo!
Hi guys, thank you so much. I better stop because I will start crying. It is quite an honor, truly, to be getting this award, and I really feel like I'm cheating because so many people have given so much time and put so much on the line to speak out for the gay community and actually really fight on the streets. I'm getting this award because of who I am. It's not something that I really kind of had to study for, or you know. I mean, I did do my marching and all that stuff, but still, Nadine Smith, you're the one, you know. I want to talk a little bit, I guess, about the acceptance gap that we've all felt in our lives, and now it seems that that gap's just gotten a lot wider. For me, my life was a lot easier because I was famous and whatever, played tennis, and so I didn't get thrown out of a restaurant as friends of mine did in a very nice restaurant in Colorado, in Aspen, Colorado, where I lived, and we said, "We don't want your kind here." This is 20 years ago. That never happened to me, but what did happen to me was when I played against Chris Everett, who is a good friend of mine, Chris America, as Bud Collins called her. You know, when she came out on the court, or whoever I played, when they were introduced, everybody clapped. When I was introduced, not so much. A lot of people clapped. Some people booed. Some people whistled. Some people were quiet. We clap now. Everybody's clapping. So. And again, I've said this before, I didn't think they didn't clap because they didn't like my very bad haircut, which, as you saw through that video, I had a few. And I didn't think they didn't clap because they didn't like my tennis, because that was pretty kick-ass, right? But we know why they didn't clap, and as you said, you didn't feel safe. You heard those comments, and so labels are for closet for things in your closet. Labels are for kitchen to organize it. Labels are not for people. And I was labeled Martina Navratilova, lesbian tennis player. Seriously? I'm a tennis player. You don't write Chris Everett, heterosexual tennis player. You don't write Joe Montana, heterosexual football player. So what is that? So I thought it was really important for us to come out to make it personal, because it's not us against them anymore. It's when you make it personal, you make a huge difference. And you go forward now 20 years when I was able to, it is 20 years, 93, this was two years ago. When I was able to ask Julia to marry me in New York, did it at the U.S. Open, and it almost felt like an out-of-body experience because you see movies where people do it on the jumbotron, whatever. And here it was real life. And you know what the coolest thing about that was? When we were leaving there, people said, "Congratulations." And they were all so excited. It was kids, it was adults, it was older people, black, white, purple, all of that stuff in between. It didn't matter. They were so excited for us. And that's when I realized how far we have come, yet how far we still have to go. Because you know what? I proposed in New York, and we had to get married in New York because it wasn't legal in Florida. I spoke to Nadine, and she said, well, maybe next summer, but I don't know, Pam Bondi. Bondi? Is it Bondi or Bondi? Who believed in straight marriage so much, he tried it 3 times. I know you've heard that line before, but I made it up then. So here we are, and I thought, okay, this is going to be just amazing celebrating here today, and it felt like, okay, we're going to a funeral. But you know what? We are not. This fight, we will not stop. We will not be quiet, and we're just going to keep fighting because until this guy is out of there and until we get full equal protection under the law for everybody, we're not going to stop. So, speak out, everybody. That's what I've been doing. That's what I will keep doing. I'm going to put this on my car. And again, thank you so much for this honor. Thank you, my wife, Julia, for being here. And 8.5 years. Yeah, that's a long time. And thank you, Nadine Smith, for the work you do. Bless your heart. Thank you so much, everybody.
I'd like to introduce the Gala's co-chairs, Nate Klarfeld and Terry Gaw.
I'm Terry Gaw, the co-chair, along with Nate, for the Gala this year. And, a couple of things occurred to me about tonight. One is that our Equality Florida staff works so hard. It's a small number of people that do great things. I got an email this morning from Ro at 5:49 a.m., and she had been working the night before at the sponsors' dinner. They work amazingly hard. Give yourself a round of applause. So I don't need notes for this part. There's one volunteer who has spent the last 5 years committed very hard to Equality Florida. You would see him anywhere in the neighborhood, maybe at Storks or Starbucks, Home Depot, Crunch Gym, jaw-jacking, talking up the Equality of Florida, talking up our mission, being our advocate in the community. And I have learned so much from him in this past year. Not nearly enough, but a lot. And so Nate is stepping down for next year. Not stepping away, but stepping down. A measurement of his contribution has been, during his term, we've raised almost $2 million. The one, the only, Nate.
I know how important it is to recognize the people who came before you, and I could not have done this without standing on the shoulders of a very special person who did this for 6 years prior to me. It's Philip Dearborn. Thank you, Philip. The other person I'd like to thank right now is Ro Iliescu, our South Florida Development Director. And that, I'm just leaving you with that. Thank you all.
This last summer, I had the unusual opportunity and privilege to cover the Orlando Pulse Club nightclub attack. I say unusual because my first stop on the way to Orlando was to interview the father of the suspect a few times. I say privilege, though, because when I got to Orlando, I saw firsthand the grief, the sadness, and the misery about what happened. But I was even more impressed with how much the community came together. Not just our community, not just the LGBT community, it was the entire community of Orlando, it felt like, was there to help and support us on this unbelievable attack. 49 people dead and dozens injured. This organization has done an amazing job as well, raised nearly $10 million to support the victims of Pulse Orlando. Let's give them a round of applause.
When you realize that it's not music and you hear people screaming,
everything just happens so fast. Something you can't really explain.
I was signing my check and getting ready to go when you hear the gunshots.
I was there with my husband and 6 other friends. I lost 4 of them in the tragedy.
Nothing is going to replace my only child. He was just my whole world.
Within days of the massacre, we began getting phone calls from victims of other shootings who wanted to know 2 things. 1, will you make sure the money actually goes to the victims? Because in so many other cases, people have been re-victimized by having funds raised in their name they didn't get to. And we made that absolute solemn vow and have kept that.
It means that the world has our back.
It restores my faith in humanity.
Everybody says, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. But this goes beyond thank you.
We weren't defined by the hate-filled act of a demented killer. We've been defined by our response, and that's a response of love and compassion and unity.
And the second thing was, after the vigils, after the memorials, you still have a lot of work to do, and you've got to honor them with action.
Our strength comes from our unity and from our support for each other. And Equality Florida was a huge part of pulling that together.
When politicians say you don't deserve the same protections as everybody else and the law shouldn't recognize your family in the same way, what you're saying is you're not quite as human as everybody else.
I'm proud now to introduce a mother, a wife, the co-founder and CEO of Equality Florida, Nadine Smith.
Thank you, everybody. Whoa. Thank you so much. Oh, man. I don't know about you all, but my emotions have been all over the place this week. I am so glad to see all of you here, because we need each other right now. I thought that the biggest heartbreak of this year was what happened at Pulse. It tested us, and we rose to that challenge. When something like this happens, you get pulled immediately into the direction of hatred, of blame, of scapegoating, of pointing fingers, of demonizing, of becoming the very thing that hates you. And I am so proud that the Equality Florida family, the organizations on the ground, the international community that rallied to raise that money, rejected fear, rejected Islamophobia, rejected hatred. We came together, and it was amazing. And I will tell you that I think there's no small part of Carlos's victory that isn't a reflection of how Orlando responded with compassion, love, and rejected fear all of the way. I feel like right now, America was faced with that same choice. And the good news is this: the majority of Americans rejected fear. They rejected xenophobia. They rejected the anger that Donald Trump appealed to. This idea that we should throw out all of our values out of fear of a brown menace, of Mexicans, of Muslims, that we should give in to that fear. The good news is the majority of Americans rejected that idea. The bad news is too many embraced it. And now we are faced with the reality that someone who stoked the worst in us is about to occupy the White House. And I know that that's, so I've talked to a lot of folks over the last few days, and we all, like Stratton, are answering the question of how are you doing with a mix of truthfulness and lies. It's like, I don't know, what time is it? Ask me in 5 minutes, I'll give you a different answer. But I think of over the last few years, every time we gather for a gala, it's been to celebrate some victory. Sometimes, the hard slog of a local ordinance or electoral victory, or something small, and more recently these huge victories, these breakthroughs. And so we're grieving not just because the candidate that has exemplified that, who lifted us up, who included us, did not prevail. We're grieving the things that won't happen because of that. We're grieving the progress that has been slowed because of that. And we're grieving because there's uncertainty about how far back this person wants to push us. And I think that, so it's hard. It's hard in this moment to exactly know. But I look to Orlando, and I look at what we did in the midst of grief. We first and foremost said, we're going to take care of each other. And by showing up tonight, that's what you've said. I'm not hiding under the comforter with some Haagen-Dazs and hoping it all goes away. I'm showing up. I'm showing up because there's work to do. I also want to make sure that people understand that we are not helpless. We are absolutely not helpless. This is a different day. We are out. We are proud. We are married. We have children that we will fight for. You ask anybody, what will you do for your spouse? What will you do for your child? We will do no less to defend our families. You can count on that. So let me tell you the couple of things that every one of us has to do. First of all, we have to stand up for each other. And I don't just mean the LGBT community. I wear this safety pin and this blue patch of cloth, one, to remind myself that where I see people being picked on by these emboldened bullies, these racists, these homophobes, I'm going to intervene. I'm going to step forward, and I'm going to tell them, not here, not in this country, not in our America. We've got to stand up for each other like that. We began this work. We began this work fighting bullying. It was our very first major task, was to pass a statewide anti-bullying bill. And it wasn't because we knew we were going to do that. It happened because parents and young people were calling us and they were saying, this is what's happening in our schools. And the one thing that we know is that you cannot be a bystander. When you are silent, the bully assumes that you agree and you support and you endorse what they do. You must raise your voice. Now, I know a lot of us are in a very, very delicate situation. We're unfriending people on Facebook. Some of them are our family members. All right, I'm not making eye contact, but you know who you are out there. And I get it. So many of us right now, self-care is an important thing. It's an act of self-love, and I encourage people, take care of yourself. You don't have to go 20 rounds with that uncle of yours. But eventually you do have to engage. You're going to have to. Because you will reach people that no video, no lecture, no event we will pull off can do. You've got to be real. You've got to challenge people, because not everybody who voted for Donald Trump endorsed everything he said and everything he stands for. In some ways, it's the banality of evil. In some ways, it is even more terrifying that people saw who he was, saw what he said, and decided they'll vote for him anyway. But you've got to engage the people in your life that have to be reached. We began Equality Florida. Next year, we're going to be 20. I know we look good for 20. But in those early days of this organization, even before we had the name Equality Florida, it was a situation that if media showed up, we had to tell them that you can take pictures of people on that side of the room, but not this side of the room. When we were trying to build our board of directors, it was tough because people would ask, do you have to put my full name on the documents? People were having their children taken from them. The idea of marriage wouldn't even occur to us as a possibility. This is not that day, and we shouldn't be so fearful and act like this is that day. In fact, I will say this, fear is our worst enemy right now because it can paralyze you. It can make the monsters seem bigger than they are, and they count on our silence, and they count on our fear, and they count on it driving us back into that closet that we have disassembled. So we have to speak up. Here's another thing that we have to do. In 2 years, every single member of the House is up for election. And we've got to start organizing right now to take them out. Here's the third thing. All of us have buying power. The LGBT community has buying power that exceeds $1 trillion. We love it when we see these wonderful sponsors standing with us. Pay attention who's not standing with you. Ask yourself, am I putting money into the pocket of somebody who's doing harm to me, to my family, to my community? And don't give them any more of your money. There's more of us than there are of them. And the final thing I want to say is this. We are linked. I'm standing here not just as a lesbian. I'm standing here as a black person. I'm standing here as a woman. Every part of my identity has been under assault by this campaign, by the president-elect. He has made the world more dangerous for every part of who I am. And if this election taught us nothing else, it taught us that our fates are tied. You wonder why we speak up on redistricting? Why we raise hell when they do everything to curtail the right to vote? It's because this is the outcome they wanted. They wanted to suppress the vote just enough. Here in Florida, in North Carolina, they understand that a little bit of nudging that needle can have extraordinary impact. You know, Dr. King, in talking about the civil rights movement, he said, this isn't just about the uplift of black people in America. He said, this is about injecting a new strain of love into the veins of society. And for me, this work has always been that. If a father can refuse to claim the body of his own child killed at Pulse, how can that person have any empathy for anybody else, care about anybody else, if you can be taught and twisted so much that you would do that? When we've made America wake up and say, we will not hide, we are your sons and daughters, we are your parents, we are your grandparents, we have injected a glorious new strain of love and empathy into society. And we have to keep that legacy of this movement alive, and we have to speak out against the cruel hatred of women in this country. We have to speak out against racism. We have to fight back against the rising tide of anti-Semitism that we are seeing, against Islamophobia. All of our fates are tied, and this election drew a big highlighter under all of that, and that is the work of Equality Florida. That is your work every single day. Now, I don't want to be terribly partisan here, so I want to end with a quote from a Republican. And, you know, we said last time we gathered, we said, listen, everybody, I know we've been celebrating, we've got more victories, we're seeing bipartisan support for the things we're doing. Don't step back and think it's all inevitable from here. We said the road ahead is going to be harder because we're talking about getting to the root of the issue. We're talking about pulling it up by the root. And that's where we're going to meet the greatest resistance. And then came Pulse. And now comes this election. And I've never wished I had been wrong more than I do right now. But we can't sit back. And so this was something written by a Republican who was part of the Never Trump movement within the Republican Party. And I think it's something that we all need to just carry with us. And he said, Max Stepanovich is his name. He's a big-time Florida Republican. And he wrote, each of us wants to believe that if we were tested in some fundamental way, when the chips were down, morally, spiritually, physically, we would pass the test. But we do not really expect to be tested. That sort of thing happens only to people we see on television and read about in books, heroes and such. And if we were tested, surely we would know it. How could a literal moment of truth in our lives go unnoticed? The answer is normalcy bias. That's the sense that this day, this problem, or in this case, this election, is pretty much like any other, different only in degree, not in kind. That everything will be all right, notwithstanding overwhelming evidence to the contrary, because everything has always been all right before. We analyze, rationalize, and temporize until we fail the test by not taking it. We are being tested right now. We have to rise to this moment as a movement, as a nation. Do not cower. Do not back down. Do not give an inch. My son is counting on you. He's counting on me. The future is counting on us, and I love you all for being here and continuing to stand with Equality Florida.
Please give generously to Equality Florida because the fight keeps going on.
To provide your financial support, go to eqfl.org/Broward. And thank you.